Raptors head coach Nick Nurse complaining to the officials about the way that he was being officiated in Game 1. And Embiid had a message for Nick Nurse at the end of Game 2.
He's a great coach, obviously. I got what he's been able to accomplish, and, I've always been a big fan. But I told him, respectfully, told him to stop about calls because I saw what he said last game. If you're going to, triple team somebody all game, they're bound to, get to the free throw line. I feel like, every fouls were legit and probably should have been more, honestly.
Embiid could be seen talking to Nick Nurse on the sideline near the end of the game, and Nick Nurse said that Embiid told him, "I'm going to keep making all the free throws if you keep fouling." And Embiid went 12 for 14 from the line, and this is a huge advantage for Joel Embiid that he is hitting his free throws because he's getting fouled at that rate and going to the line. Make your free throws, and that's a huge difference in the game. He went to the line 11 times in Game 1. It was 9 for 11, so he finished with 31 points and 11 rebounds, and now the Sixers have a 2-0 lead. We're showing them arguing 2-0 lead over the Raptors in the series after a 112-97 win last night. I mean, they're handling the Raptors pretty easily.
Well, we said this going into the playoffs. I think we both picked the Sixers.
Yes.
And our takeaway is the Sixers have flaws but no ceiling.
Right.
The Raptors don't have any flaws, but a clear ceiling. Like, who do you go to with 3 minutes left? Fred VanVleet's like, okay, I got Harden. By the way, Maxey is an ascending player, and there are moments when he takes over the game as their 3.
Well, when you're mostly, I don't want to say even, but when you have two talented rosters, when you have two good head coaches and two, I don't know if I want to say Philadelphia has a great culture as of yet. Toronto certainly does. When you have two strong cultures, I'll say that. Then it comes down to the stars.
Yeah.
Who has better stars? If everything else was mostly even, or at least, comparable, you got to come down to the stars, and the Sixers have more. And that's really what's making a big difference in this situation. Also, Joel Embiid is a pretty big guy, and he's great. He's in the MVP race, finished in top 3. Could possibly win it, and that's what it is. Nick Nurse is a great coach. This is why I picked the Raptors the year that they got Kawhi, because they are a great regular season team. They're well run, talented, have good culture. The stars make the difference when everything else is even, and I think this is going to be a short series between those two teams. So Marcus Smart has been named the NBA Defensive Player of the Year. It's the first Defensive Player of the Year for Smart. He's the first guard to take it home since Gary Payton in the 95-96 season, and Smart and Gary Payton are the only 2 point guards to have won it. Gary Payton was there presenting, introducing it to him. I love how they waited until Gary was out of the way before they started throwing all the water. Smart said he was blown away by the honor. Mikal Bridges and Rudy Gobert ended up 2nd and 3rd. He finished the season ranked 7th in the NBA in steals, 5th among all NBA guards in defensive rating.
He's a great example. Marcus Smart, day 1 in the league. Now, when he first broke into the league, I think it was an Oklahoma State guy. He was a defender. He couldn't shoot. And he's become more reliable offensively. Marcus Smart is a great example of there's some things he's not going to do. He reminds me a little of Bruce Bowen, who played with the Spurs. I mean, Marcus could score more, but he understands totally what the Celtics need of him. He is an annoyance. He plays hard. He can be physical. He is wildly valuable to this franchise. Not everybody's a finisher. You need guys like this on championship teams. Draymond Green totally gets his role. Defend, annoy, move the ball.
Make things difficult for the other team's best player.
The greatest teams ever. Warriors have their glue guy Draymond. The Chicago Bulls had a lot of different players. Rodman. Ron Harper. Ron Harper could score 25 a night. He knew with the Bulls that wasn't his role. And I think Marcus Smart is a credit to Marcus getting it. Listen, I'm going to have a 20-year career here, but I'm everybody can score in college. But then you get to the NBA and a coach says, hey, I don't want you to shoot much. And for a lot of guys, they just can't handle it.
Yeah, I mean, everyone doesn't need to be the scorer in the NBA. I say this all the time, and I don't know that the Celtics are a championship team this year, but teams that are competitive every single year, that are there every single year and in the conversation, they have great role players, and everyone appreciates what it is that they're supposed to. if you pick the Suns, aren't you like a little nervous? And the Suns are obviously so great, but they look incredible.
Yeah, like
there's
sports,
so much parity.
Sports has exploded, not only internationally. Baseball's going international to get its play. When I was watching, 70s, 80s, the sport wasn't nearly as international. Basketball's always been more international. But so the Arizona Cardinals, according to a former NFLer, James Jones, good buddies with Aaron Rodgers, he said on the NFL Network he thinks Arizona's going to trade Kyler Murray. Here's James Jones. Two things to consider. Number one, Arizona's owner gave the head coach and general manager, Steve Keim and Cliff Kingsbury, extensions. So he sent a message to Kyler Murray and his agent and everybody else. We're not going to get bullied here. These guys are staying. We don't know if you are, Kyler, but those guys are staying. You're not going to bully us. Secondly, Kyler Murray's issues, and I've been told this for years, they were well aware of him when they drafted him. He tends to be sort of selfish, aloof. I mean, he wasn't totally committed to football. He's just wildly talented, like crazy talented. He's gotten better every year, and they've won more games every year, and they love him. But they kind of knew his stuff. So this is being presented as, oh, my God, can you... They've been doing this stuff behind the scenes for years. They knew this day would come. They strongly believed he would be more of a holdout guy than a Dak or a Brady or a Russell Wilson. That was his personality. His dad has a presence. This is something that they're well aware of. And they have budgeted to sign Kyler Murray. They don't want to sign him early, and they're concerned about his health. He's been hurt twice. I said this when he came out. You can't look at his size and tell me it's not somewhat of a concern. Nobody thinks, you know what I want my quarterback to be? 5'10". They don't. Everybody would love Russell Wilson to be 6'3" and move around like that. Size is offensive linemen now are 6'7". You don't want a 5'10" quarterback. He's not a great pocket thrower. Some of it, like Russell Wilson is, he has to kind of create passing lanes because he is a little shorter. It's not ideal. Now, Russell's going to be a Hall of Famer. Kyler could be a Hall of Famer as well, but it's not ideal. Years ago, there was a quarterback. Many of you, most of you have never heard of him. His name was Fran Tarkenton. He went to Georgia, then Minnesota. Fran was a great quarterback. He was 5'11". He ran around a lot. Why? Because he had to create passing lanes. It's hard to see over the offensive linemen that are now all 6'6" and 6'7". Some are taller than that. So Larry Fitzgerald called out Kyler Murray publicly. Larry Fitzgerald is probably the most respected NFL player, the singular most respected NFL player in 20 years. He is the gold standard of American football players. He is the gold standard. And Larry Fitzgerald called him out, said, Arizona gave him too much too early. He feels himself a lot. They know this. They've dealt with it. It's discussed. It's known in the building. But it's a great division. He's a remarkable player. I would re-sign him. I would try to structure it based on I'll pay him a ton of money guaranteed early. I don't want to get trapped late because I do worry about his health. I said this about Deebo Samuel. I love Deebo Samuel. He's not built. The tarmac's not long with Deebo. Like Larry Fitzgerald didn't get hurt. Calvin Johnson. Some guys you feel like you can play for 15 years. DK Metcalf, my guess is, won't be hurt a lot. He's just so physically unique. Julio Jones is broken down now, but after like 10, 12 years of just being so reliable. There are certain athletes, their style, their body, they were hurt in college, they're smaller, they're more collision prone. George Kittle, I love George Kittle of the Niners, but he collides for a living. Gronk collides for a living. Deebo Samuel does. And so with Kyler, I'd like to structure it so I'm not trapped if he gets hurt again, and he will. I told you years ago, I had he's going to be a Hall of Fame player, a defensive end in the NFC tell me off air. I've hit him. He don't like to get hit. Kyler doesn't like to get hit. When you're 5'10", running around and weigh 90 pounds less than the guy's whacking you, he doesn't like to get hit. And he said, I don't think he's long for the league. I think he's great, and I think he'll play, but that career is going to be closer to 9 years than 20. And so if I was Arizona, this is a player that I would pay. But a lot of this is being presented as, this is an exploding problem, and you've got to move off him. Arizona's been well aware of this stuff and has been managing it and has budgeted for it and is expecting it, and it's all good, and I think they're going to pay him. So when it gets presented as urgent and they're fearful and they don't know, folks, Just because your kid does something at school to get suspended, it doesn't mean the parents didn't know it was coming, right? Like there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes. Oh my God, our friends got divorced. Yeah, the couple knew about it for 3 years when they went to therapy. So Arizona's got this under control. It's now being thrust into the public light, which always makes it uncomfortable for GMs, coaches, players, owners, agents. That's not where you want to be. They know what's going on here. Kyler likes Arizona. The coach loves him. He likes the coach. They'll get this done, is my prediction. You just got to figure out they're not going to be bullied. They extended their coach and GM. They will not be bullied on this. But they got their arms around this. I don't know if they're all going to therapy, but they've got their arms around this situation. Joy with the news.
No. Herd on the news. This is the Herd.